Good afternoon. I'm calling to order this public hearing of the Los Angeles County Commission on Human Relations. It's a public hearing on policing and human relations with a special focus on the experiences of members of the LGBT communities and women of color. I want to welcome everyone here this afternoon. My name is Isabel Denning. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. And I am the president of the LA County Commission on Human Relations. And I work as a law professor at Southwestern Law School. I have the privilege of presiding over these hearings this afternoon. What I'd like to do before I go ahead and have my fellow commissioners introduce themselves and point out to my wonderful staff is to ask if all of you would just take a moment of silence now. Whether you're doing positive thoughts or prayers, I'd just like you all to remember and hold up all of the folks who have been devastated by the earthquake in Mexico and the various hurricanes in Puerto Rico, Dominica, the Caribbean islands, and also, of course, in Texas and Florida.
One additional moment of silence for the queer and trans folks and the women of color who have been killed by police in the state. Especially, we want to call the names of Jamel Moore, Waukesha Wilson, Riddell Jones, Megan Hockaday, Michelle Shirley, and so many others who've been killed by the state in this county. And we want to remember them and ask that they be present with us as we conduct these hearings and people tell their stories, let their truths also be heard from our mouths.
Okay, so I want to make sure to thank all of you for coming this Saturday afternoon. I'd like to ask all of my fellow commissioners, you already heard from Commissioner Abdullah, but she'll introduce herself and she'll also be speaking a little bit more later on because she is the chair of our ad hoc committee who's pulled together all of these hearings and has really been the heart and soul of putting this together.
Okay.
Well, this is just my name, and then I'll come back to you.
My name
she will talk.
My name is Melina Abdullah. I go by she and her, and I am the chair of the Committee on Policing and Human Relations, as well as a member of the Human Relations Commission, and I am professor and chair of Pan-African Studies at Cal State LA.
Okay, my name is Cynthia Anderson Barker. I go by she and her, and I'm a civil rights attorney, and I'm on the Human Relations Commission, appointed by Hilda Sobeys.
Hi everyone, my name is Guadalupe Montaño. My pronouns are she and her. I represent District 3, appointed by Supervisor Sheila Kuehl. I want to thank you for being here and being willing to talk to us today.
Good afternoon, my name is Preeti Kulkarni. I go by she and her, and I'm a representative of the 3rd District, appointed by Supervisor Kuehl, and I would also like to thank all of you for being here and for sharing your stories. Thank you.
Next to me is Robert Sowell, who is the Assistant Executive Director of our Commission, and he'll be helping me, as he always does. And we have a number of other staff folks. Riku, he is walking down the aisles there. Luisa's here. Monica, Clifton, they're sitting over here. They'll be doing their timing. There are a whole bunch of Ray is here. Josh, Ray is at the front table where there's a sign-in. So I want to just, there's Josh, he's waving his hand. So I want to just thank all of our staff people who couldn't do this without them. Just a little bit of background. I'm not going to go through it for a long time. This commission is holding this hearing because, of course, policing issues have been front and center in our county and, of course, in the national news. And holding hearings like this and investigating policing relations is something that this commission has done historically. And when the anniversary of the 1965 Watts Rebellion took place, we decided we needed to take stock again. And clearly, this is a timely matter. This is the 6th in a series of 7 public hearings. We've been in every district in the county, and then we decided that we needed to have this one specifically for the LGBTQ community, our brothers and sisters there, as well as women of color in particular, because the concerns around them are really the greatest in terms of what's happening in policing relations. So we are really grateful that you're here. We want to hear from you, what your experiences have been, what your ideas are and recommendations for improvement. If there are things that are working that you'd like, we want that held up. And the things that aren't, all ideas on how that can be changed and improved. Is all that we want to hear from you. As a commission, we are a fact-finding research body, so while all of us have been appointed by county supervisors, our job is to advise them, recommend to them as strongly as we possibly can what will be the most positive things to be done around policing relations. And so we'll collect all of the information as well as our final hearing, which will be specifically for law enforcement. And we'll be gathering information from experts on ideal policing and ideally all from you. Because ultimately, positive changes around policing in our community are going to come from all of us, not from our particular report, not from the videos that we hope will generate for your use, but from all of us working together to demand what all of us deserve. So at this time, let me have Commissioner Abdullah say a few words, and then I'll talk a little bit about just the specifics on forms and all that stuff.
So again, good afternoon. We're very appreciative of you for giving up your Saturday afternoon to be here. I want to share with you what the intent of this hearing is. We recognize that public safety is not going to be transformed through this body. What this space is intended to be is a way for you as community members to get your voice on the official record so that we can generate a report around what it is the community is experiencing and what it is the community is demanding. That report will also not carry the weight of, it's not enforceable, but it is something that you can advocate through. Right? So this is meant to be another tool in our ability to advocate. We have to remember that anytime we talk about transformation, and again, this is our 6th of 7 hearings, we're hearing a lot of language around transforming public safety. This is not what we're hearing from our community members is not necessarily rhetoric about quote-unquote healing relationships, but rather being visionary in what public safety looks like, right? And so we need to be clear that anytime we're talking about that kind of transformation never simply comes through governmental bodies. It doesn't come through commissions. It comes through the work that you're doing on the ground. And so what we'd like to do is provide an additional tool for you to do that work, for us to do that work. And so we want to be very clear about that. We also want to remind folks that no police have been invited to this hearing or any other community hearing. We believe that it's very important that there's space where we can talk together as a community. That said, we cannot guarantee that there are no police in the room who have not identified themselves. But we have not invited any police into this space, so we want to be clear about our intent. This is meant to be a space for community voices. That 7th hearing will be an opportunity for us to then synthesize what's been said in community, present that back to law enforcement, and ask them about the issues that you want us to ask them about. Finally, a report will be generated that we can advocate around. In addition to putting your voice on the record by making public testimony, and you can do that either here at the microphones, or you can also write down your testimony. You are welcome to use it. I'm sure Commissioner Gunning is going to go over this process in a moment. You're also welcome to use pseudonyms. You don't have to use your full name or even any of your name if you choose not to. In addition to that, we have in the back of the room law students who are taking formal complaints. So if there is a complaint that you want to lodge with an agency, please raise your hand, law students. They are happy to help you make those complaints. So again, thank you for being here, and we look forward to your testimony, and we hope that this is a fruitful conversation in space.
Thank you, Commissioner Abdullah. Can everybody hear? You probably heard her really well. Could you hear me before? Okay. We'll try to speak right into the mic to make sure. So as Commissioner Abdullah was alluding to, we do have speaker forms back there with Ray and Riku. So if you'll please fill them out, then Riku will run up here and Robert will keep them in order and will call you all in order. We're asking at this time that people limit their remarks to 2 minutes, because we want to make sure that we hear from everybody who wants to speak. If you do have more things that you want to say, hopefully there'll be time at the end and people can come back around and still testify. In addition, as Commissioner Abdullah mentioned, you can do anonymous testimony, not just coming up here and not using your own name, but going to room 107, which is right out the door here, and immediately to the right, where you can both do additional testimony, but also if you prefer to testify in a more private space, we can make sure that it is anonymous, that you are not identified, your face does not have to appear, but you still can in fact provide some testimony. Time. So let me just, let's see. Okay, Commissioner Abdullah is talking about doing 3 minutes. Let's try to start with 3 and see if that will work with everybody who's here. As I said, I do want to make sure, we all want to make sure that everybody who's here and wants to speak gets a chance to, so we might make it back to 2, as I first said, if that will make it easier for everybody to have an opportunity to say what they need to say in the open forum. Childcare, I think there's the sign there. It's, again, out these doors all the way to the end, so we do have childcare, so please, and as people come in, if you can let them know if they bring children, they're all the way at the end of the hall. The bathrooms are midway between us and childcare. You'll make a right, and so they are there as well. There is food as well in the hallway, and you are free to bring it and eat it in here, but not while you're testifying with your mouth full, because your mama told you not to do that, and so we're not going to do that here. But we do have food for us, so I want to make sure that you all know that and enjoy. Other than that, I just want to say, let's all just make sure that we respect each other. We're here to do some really important, some difficult, sometimes very painful work, and we want to hold up everybody in a respectful way as they come forward and tell us what is on their hearts this morning. Okay. At this time, what we're going to do, before we call up the folks who have signed up, we've got some community partners who will, in fact, have a little bit more time, 5 minutes. And the first is Jaden Fields from Gender Justice. Jaden, you see here? Louisa?
Yes.
Jaden Fields? He's not here. Okay. Ronnie Veliz, somos Remedio Valle. Yes? Okay, come on, right here.
Buenas tardes. Okay.
Hold up a little bit, you're gonna have to speak right into it.
All right. Buenas tardes. My name is Ronnie Beliz. I am the founder and executive director of Somos Familia Valle. It's a surprise to be invited when LA organizations usually exclude us because we're from the San Fernando Valley. So we really want to send a shout out to the commission for actually being really intentional in bringing us on board for this dialogue. I am a seasoned student, master's in social work, first one in my family to get this far, formerly homeless and jailed also by the system, and I am here as a transgender, non-binary immigrant of color from Peru. With that said, I want to bring visibility to the issues that we see with bullying in schools, young people under 18 having to go through difficult and traumatic experiences, not only with the LAPD, but with the system, the LA County and law enforcement. We want to make sure that we go beyond restorative justice, because some things are not meant to be restored, that we actually really are intentional, and also going beyond the 501c3 status that some grassroots organizations don't have, and they still matter, and they deserve to be heard. So we really want to push transformative justice, and we need to start it as soon as possible. In addition to that, we are here to bring visibility and attention to a new way of dealing with bullying that has got to become priority. In the San Fernando Valley, we have had conversations with elementary school principals who do not believe that bullying is a real issue. That is heartbreaking as it continues happening. Just a week ago, a 13-year-old youth committed suicide, and we need to work together to make sure that these stories are actually honored. And it's going to take not just organizations on the grassroots level, but it's going to take all of us. The policing of our communities, there are so many checkpoints in Pacoima, San Fernando, Silmar, and when you go to Calabasas or Burbank or Glendale, you don't see the same thing, and that is not right. I wonder what people in Beverly Hills or in areas such as that would feel if they actually were over police like we are in the Northeast Valley particularly. Another thing that we would like to bring visibility and attention is to victim blaming when it comes to sexual violence. That continues happening. We demand that no organization doing anti-sexual violence work has sheriffs on site. For undocumented transgender people and for people with mixed status families and formerly incarcerated, that is furthering the trauma that we have gone through. So we demand that LA County stops funding any organization that has sheriff on site when they're actually trying to help survivors of sexual violence. In addition to that, we also are here to make sure that you know that we have been working really hard in the San Fernando Valley to keep our youth safe in bathrooms. But there is no campaign right now to inform the community about which bathrooms we can go to out in the community, outside the schools, where we don't have to deal with people, clients, or consumers calling on police. And because, for instance, the city of San Fernando is such a small, tiny city. Many people think that San Fernando is part of the city of LA, but it's not. That's not right. A lot of the times we are policed by the sheriff in the city of San Fernando. And that is extremely concerning because the way that they deal with us is extremely different. Also, mental health. Mental health professionals, we're extremely concerned about about certain county employees breaking families apart when it comes to further pushing youth to the foster care system, instead of having a transformative justice approach. The way that our families are policed in the San Fernando Valley is very concerning. There is no real there's no real intersectionality in the way that we are understood as far as how we are criminalized. I also want to mention that learning what has happened with the deputy raping women in jails, that sends a strong message to our youth. What is the point of helping them understand consent culture? What is the point of helping them understand that some people are being criminalized, and then when they are taken behind bars, the same system that is telling us not to be criminals is the same system raping our bodies. So we want to make sure that that has accountability, and we're here also in solidarity with Jamel Moore and everybody here that feels the pain and the trauma of our communities. So that's what we wanted to be here for. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you. But Ronnie, before we go, you mentioned the health. Do you have some recommendations on mental health and what your organization would prefer to be seeing that we can put into part of our recommendation?
Yes, so when it comes to mental health, one of the things that we are very concerned is a lot of people continue using the word youth very lightly for 18 to 24 only, and we forget about minors. So the recommendation is that people actually care to get to know our LGBTQ+ Youth Council. It's for ages 10 to 17. We provide mentoring and we provide counseling. We provide this at Friends of the Family, the first and third Saturday of every month. It's on our website, somosfamiliavalle.org. Again, it's somosfamiliavalle.org. We have been funded by the community. We're still funded by the community. That's available. The other thing is we had conversation with the National Suicide Prevention Hotline, and many of the conversations that end up there actually start with bullying. And we want to make sure that everybody pulls out their phones right now. Thank you for that. I want you all to know one phone number that has been started in collaboration with the San Fernando Valley Community Mental Health Center. And this serves Orange County, LA County, it serves Ventura County, and San Bernardino County. The number for any cases of bullying, K through 12, is 1-844-256-0735. Again, it's 844-256-0735. Young people under 18 and parents and concerning professionals can call to get informed about bullying, presentations about it. And because bullying is a crime and in the state of California, we want to make sure that the people who are doing the bullying are not disproportionately impacted and pushed into the juvenile system as well. Okay. So that's what it's important for us, for you to know.
Thank you so much, Ronnie. We really appreciate it. Salcedo from Trans-Latino Coalition. Should that be here? No. Is Jaden Fields from Gender Justice here? Did he get here? Okay. What we'll do then is we'll start with the folks who have signed up to speak here from the community. And the first one is Imani Moses. Yes, they have 3 minutes. She's looking out for you. 3 minutes. Can you reset?
No, it's over 3 minutes, so I'm gonna do.
Oh, okay, you're gonna do it. Okay, so once this starts running, you'll know that you've used up 1 minute, and then, but we know you've got 3 minutes. Okay, good one, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Imani Moses. I am a part of the Women's Leadership Project at Gardena High School, and I have been a part of WLP since 2007, and I'm currently a graduating senior at California State University, Long Beach.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So first and foremost, we need to have solidarity within the community to decrease police presence and also be supportive of our surrounding communities. Policing in high schools, in particular high schools in South LA communities, are targeting Black women and men for random searches, and this can influence negative behaviors in school and frame young students as criminals. School is for learning and for students to grow and make mistakes and move on from those mistakes. Police in school stunts growth, and to be honest, they can behave as bullies. As a young woman, it can be frightening to see an increase in police in neighborhoods. Instead of having more college and educational opportunities, parks, libraries, and recreational centers. There needs to be more investment in our futures and pursuing a better life for ourselves than a setup for us to go to jail or die. In the 23 years I have been on this earth, I have seen too many cops pulling people of color over for walking down the street or for standing outside with a group of friends and getting a pat down without a valid explanation. This has become normal in our community, and it should not be. I have had several people close to me get arrested or approached from the police, and not enough go to college, graduate, or even have stable jobs with a decent paid wage to be able to support their families. Think about the support that is provided in wealthy white communities compared to high schools in South LA. We don't see heavy policing in those schools, constant random searches, or police cars posted every few blocks. Instead of pulling people over for walking down the street, why not ask, how's your day going? Why not say, keep up the great work in school? We want positive and active support to be the best we can be. The system is setting us up to fail before we have even started, and the time is now for it to all be up to an end. And thank you. First of all, I want to say thank you, Melina, for coming to Black Grad and for presenting. I just want to say you're very inspiring, and thank you for everything. And I appreciate your words of encouragement. Thank you.
Melinda Isle, did I get that right? Oops. Melinda Cole? I'm sorry. Come on down.
Hello, my name is Miranda Kyle. I'm also from Women's Leadership Project. I'm a Cal State Refuge student, undergrad, majoring in social welfare and justice at CSUN. I just wanted to speak on a little bit about like what Amani speak on, but more about women of color and more about sexual assault of women. So specifically in my high school, Gardena, I've seen a lot of profiling from the police at our high school in terms of the Black and Latino students, and a lot of the women at the school are not as encouraged to pursue higher education, especially the African American and Latino students compared to the Asian students at the school. And then also when it comes to what we can do in terms of our careers, a lot of the students are really pressured to want to do like nursing and cosmetology. So there's not enough awareness, not enough encouragement from the counselors and the staff at Gardena about doing more than that and really wanting to look for your universities. The amount of law enforcement at the school outnumbers the amount of college career counselors in terms of the presence. I feel like a high school should be a pathway to college rather than prison. So I feel like that's a little bit of how Gardena represents itself. So I really ever see women of color being included in conversations when it comes to police brutality, as well as law enforcement killing Black individuals. So you don't really hear about women, and including the amount of sexual assault on women of color from law enforcement, you don't really hear about that. That doesn't happen to men as much as happens to women. So I think that's something that needs to be recognized more. And when I was doing my research, the transgender population was very staggering in terms of the amount of transgender individuals of color that were sexually assaulted by police. And then the stigma of a heterosexual Black female who is aggressive and uneducated is what law enforcement gets ready for when they get a call about a woman of color that is being unruly or that is, being called police on. So that's what they're getting ready for. So I just want to change the conversations about how women of color are being represented and profiled, and so that's not what they're trying to get ready for, unruly Black women or a woman of color. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
My name is Shai. I go by her sheep. Okay, so I've always been anxious around the police for the wrong reasons. It's not like I'm some troublemaker, but my skin automatically makes me a target. I can't work at night, I'm too scared to drive, and now I have to worry about being criminalized at a place that's supposed to give me a quality education and help my future. We need more counseling, libraries, and college counselors, and we need to work on the training, at least if we're going to keep security guards at my school. I guess it was on the spot, but I was going to talk about a situation that had happened earlier this school year with a security guard after school. I wasn't sexually harassed, but I was profiled and I guess I'll talk about it. But I was going to the library because I had book club. It was after school and I was walking with a guy friend, and I was immediately stopped by my security guard, and I could already tell he assumed that I was gonna do something like, I don't know, make out with that friend or do anything like inappropriate at school when I was just going to the book club, and he didn't take my word for it. So he basically separated me away from my friend and followed me up to the library to see if the door was at least open, and it was, of course, because I was going to the book. And he said, "Oh, the door is open," and I was irritated and miffed. So I was like, "Oh yeah, the door is open," with an attitude, but I was irritated because I was assumed of as someone who was gonna do something inappropriate when I was just going to book club. And the fact that I was in a skirt wasn't gonna. I knew that he made that assumption probably based on my appearance, but it shouldn't make him assume anything about me, especially because I'm a woman and because of my color and because of the stereotypes that Black women have. So I was very irritated and I felt frustrated and I cried because of it. And I feel like it was important for me to bring up. So yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Jerome Kitchen. I am a community activist in both the Black community and the Black gay community. I have a background in social work and mental health. First, I want to thank you all for convening us together and having this safe space for us to come and talk about issues that matter to us. It really means a lot to us. I know it takes a lot of hard work, a lot of head bumping, and we appreciate you guys for giving us this safe space. Today I want to take some time to introduce you guys to my friend Jamil. Jamil was just 26 years old. Hours after Jamil arrived in Los Angeles, California at LAX airport, Jamil was found dead in an apartment of West Hollywood, by sheriff deputies and first responders. Sheriff was not familiar with Jamil. He has no criminal background. Sheriff should have been familiar with the owner of the house where Jamil was found at because he's a well-known, wealthy political donor, going all the way up to 2016 election campaign with Hillary Clinton. He was one of her top campaign donors. Jamil's mother was told shortly after the death that it was ruled an accidental death. There was no investigation. There was no background check into who Jamil was, or the relationship between Jamil and the individual in whose home he was found dead in. Right away, Jamil was deemed a Black, homeless, gay sex worker who died of a drug overdose. That bothers me because I am 29, I'm Black, young, and I'm gay. I have a lot of dealings with white, Hispanic, any other race. And if I come up dead in the home of someone that doesn't look like me, will my mother have to deal with the tears and the pain that Jamil's mother has to deal with? Because to this day, she has not been given an official statement as to what happened to her son. She has not been sat down and told officially the accounts that took place after her son arrived in Los Angeles. The person whose house Jamil was found dead in was never taken in for an official investigation. This person has donated all the way up to our current mayor here in Los Angeles, our current DA here in Los Angeles, and to this day, Jamil's family, his community, and his friends and supporters have not been given the compassion and sympathy given to other victims in similar situations as Jamil. When women are trafficked into this country from other countries and used for sex work, we sympathize with them. We give them compassion. We hug on their moms. We hug on their younger siblings. When Jamil, his mom was told to bury him and move on. We sat down with the captain in West Hollywood. The only thing he was able to tell us is our officers responded to a rescue call. It was later determined in a phone conversation between the officers on the scene and the command officers that we would turn this over to the corner office. We have to ask ourselves, had that white, rich man been found in Jamil's home, would that have been pushed away that fast? You have to ask yourself, if your child had been found in Jamil's home, would you have taken that as an answer? Later, if the detectives had grabbed Jamil's backpack, looked in Jamil's backpack, read his notebook, they would have learned about the dealings and the relationship between Jamil and the predator whose house he died in. That predator is free today, has free of all accusations. The sheriff, the DA, nobody has even said he's a person of interest. They have statements, they have witness statements, they have victims here saying that this person is a danger to public health, using reused syringes and possibly affecting people that look like me with HIV. I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jerome, can I ask you a couple of questions, do you mind? Thank you for being here. There's a couple of things I'd like to ask you because we want it on the record. First, you mentioned that someone said to Jamil's mother, bury him and move on. Can you tell us who that was, what agency they came from if you don't know the individual?
Jamil's mother had been placing calls to the homicide detectives. The West Hollywood Sheriff Department pushed her off to the Los Angeles County Homicide Detective Office for her inquiries. She had been calling, nobody was returning calls, and then when she did get a call, the detective was not compassionate, he wasn't sympathetic with her. He has not to this day even sympathized with her loss.
So this is the sheriff, LA County Sheriff.
Detectives. That's
right, the detectives out of the LA County Sheriff's Office.
Well, they said it's dealt with by the Los Angeles County Homicide Department.
Okay, that's still the sheriff. And then one more thing that might be a couple of things from you. So we understand that who the wealthy donor is. I'd like you, if possible, to say what it is you'd like to see, how you'd like to see agencies behave differently, or what shifts you'd like to see in terms of public agencies. So are you asking for immediate investigations? I heard you say more compassion, especially for Black gay communities. Can you just give me a couple of bullet points, give us a couple of bullet points of what you'd like to see?
Thank you, Melina, for giving the opportunity. I actually did want to address that, but just in the motion right now. I honestly think that it's never okay for deputies, police officers, or first responders to wind up at the home of any individual and find someone dead and right away determine it without any investigation. Whenever someone is dead, I think that individual, their family members, and their community deserve to have an official investigation deemed right away. There should not be anything pushed off to the coroner's office. Every person deserves paid homicide detectives to investigate what happened to them and why did they end up dead in the home that they were found in. I also think that there needs to be strict policies and procedures in place that when people that look like me go to the police officer that's sworn to protect and serve their communities, they don't get turned away. They're not mocked. They're not told you're tweaking, or if you don't leave us alone, you're going to get arrested. A year before Jamil was found dead in West Hollywood, he reported his predator. He wasn't taken serious. Had someone listened to his other victims, maybe I wouldn't be here today telling you to change it, fix it, and put policies and procedures in place to save young people like me. Jamil's gone. There's nothing you, me, or anybody else can do for Jamil. But there's other people like me, other people that look like Jamil, that need you guys to press the issue to save lives that look like us.
Thank you so much, Joe. Joe, it's easy, Joe. Speak to some of the law schools back there. We're familiar with the case, but Commissioner Anderson Barker was saying that if we can get whatever information you're willing to give to our students back there, we'll see what more we can do. Thank you so much for coming forward. Thank you. Camille Johnson?
Hello, Councilwoman. This is my first time attending anything like this. Can I please?
Yeah, well, the short, the thing with the silver, try to stay close to that. Is that
this one?
Yeah.
Is this good? Oh, okay. So my name is Camille Johnson, and I wanted to speak on a situation that happened to me in a community college I was attending about 6 years ago. I have been going to school and really just trying to get out. I just got out of the military and I was suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome and depression. So when I began going to the school, my grades weren't all that good, and I wasn't all that focused on going to school. And then, and like 2 semesters later, I really got serious about it. I had taken 18 credits, and I had finished that whole college semester doing 18 units with all A's and B's. That's when the change started. So I was bringing in my homework real late. The first semesters, like I said, I had like a CD average, and I had to take some classes over. And then when I really got serious, I noticed that I started to have problems with teachers. I felt like teachers weren't as supportive as they were after I got the good grades as they were when I didn't. Okay, so I started to have problems with a particular teacher who would take a lot of days off. And so the main point of this part of the story is organization rights versus the individual rights. And I feel like when the police force comes in, it's automatically on the side of the organization. And not so much, I believe, microly race is involved, but I think it goes money, like money, race, sex, and it's kind of like a micro-management that goes on between organizations and the police force. So to read my story, I only got like a minute left. Basically what happened is I was having a problem with the teacher giving me verbal threats. And because it was nothing on record, like I couldn't prove it, but when I went to the director, they seemed to support him. And it stemmed on to, I was already kind of coming out of my depression and post-traumatic stress disorder, but it began to kind of impact that in me. And the ending result was, I was sitting in my car, I was on my laptop one day, and I was at a class that I had to take because I wanted to take it a further semester, but I was told by the teacher that if I missed just one day, he was going to fail me, whether or not that was the grade I was supposed to get. And when I went to the director and higher ups, they didn't do anything about it. So I was there not wanting to be there, and a guy, to get my attention, he like kind of like footballed into my car, and he left a big dent. Okay, well, when I went to the police department on that campus, I was not supported at all, and the ending result was the police came. They put me in handcuffs, they put me in the car, they sexually assaulted me in the car, they handcuffed me on school property, and I like literally was not being, he said he was intimidated and scared, the police officer. And I wind up, the ultimate ending result was that I was suspended. I came back. The person who was in charge of like student situations, they retired, and then the next semester I came back, and the teacher like got with that guy, and then they basically, even though I hadn't done anything when I came back to school and was able to come back to school, they retracted that same event and then put me out of that school. So basically taking all my GI Bill money that I served in the military did. And after sexually harassing me, boosting up my military assault that I dealt with while I was in the military and my military trauma. And I went like 3 years without even stepping foot into a school. I was 2 years homeless. Like I was just mentally broken in a place. And so right now I graduated with a bachelor's degree, and I didn't let that take me out of it. Sorry, I'm over, but maybe the point of that whole thing was like organization versus individual rights, and how all those things, gender, race, background, age, all those things are just micromanaged within this big system of not loving one another. And that's all I say.
Camille, thank you so much for coming forward. This kind of speech is really hard. It's a lot of courage to come forward and speak on this. Are there any questions or specifics?
I'm surprised I'm not balding.
We appreciate you being here. And if you want to go and talk with some of the law students with more of the specifics or any kind of follow-up, please do that.
Just one more thing I'd like to add, like 10 seconds. I just feel like I believe that the law enforcement agency should be all mentally evaluated from head to toe on all levels. Mental services need to be available for the social people. So like, yeah, we were talking about today, but it needs to be available to us. That's it.
All righty, thank you so much. Alexandra Magalan.
My name is Alexandra Magayon. I come from what's that?
I just apologize, I butchered your name. Magayon, I'm sorry.
It's okay. So my name is Alexandra Magayon. I come from Trans Latino Coalition. It's a trans advocacy nonprofit organization. The reason why I am here today is to share two different incidents that happened in the city of Compton and in the city of Linwood. This happened in 2011 as I was going to school at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising and residing in Compton. So at that time I was taking public transportation. I was taking the Blue Line, walking to the Blue Line, taking the Blue Line at Compton Station, and then taking that to downtown and then getting to school there. There was a night where I had to do homework at FIDM, and so I was going to go to the Blue Line, get on the station, get on the bus station, and then get to school. What happened though was, because I'm a transgender woman, and at that point I was transitioning, I was very visibly trans. So I was walking up to the, I would walk to the Blue Line every single day, but I would always get bullied or pushed or harassed, and there was a particular area at that point that people would hang out, and then they would either buy or sell tickets, and those were the people who would be harassing me. So what I did is, to avoid that situation, I went through the emergency doors in order to avoid getting bullied and being harassed and dealing with all of that. I just wanted to go to school. So there were two police officers waiting at the emergency entrance and saying, okay, give us your IDs. It was me and another guy walking by. I didn't know the guy. So I was walking up, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go get a ticket. I just don't wanna go all the way around because there's people harassing me because I'm a transgender woman. And the officer said, I don't care, you violated this. I'm gonna give you a citation for, so he gave me a citation, and I looked at the citation, and it was a moving violation. And I let him know that I wasn't driving, so that I wouldn't be getting a mobile violation. And then so he said, oh, you're a smart ass, aren't you? And I'm like, yes, I am. This isn't the right ticket, give me the right ticket and I'll take it because of what I did. So he's like, no, so for that I'm gonna give you a misdemeanor. So then he took the ticket away, gave me another ticket, and it was actually a misdemeanor offense. And then he asked the guy that was next to me, he said, do you want the same thing? And the guy said no. So the guy didn't get the same ticket that I got. And I still said, I'm still going to fight this because this is not right. I let you know why I was walking through here. I let you know my reasons. I'm just going to school. I'm not looking for any trouble. I'm just trying to get to school. And he said, if you don't sign it, then I'm going to arrest you and take you into the police car that's waiting right there. And so I signed and then got the ticket, had to do community service in order to get that misdemeanor out, and I had to take a plea in order to get it off of my record. That was one incident. The other incident happened that was in Compton at the Compton Blue Line station. The other incident happened as we were getting out of the Blue Line in Wilmington and Linwood, and it was me and my trans friend, and we were walking on Long Beach Boulevard because she lives off of Long Beach Boulevard in Linwood. So we were walking down the street with our huge FIDM bags, and if you know what a FIDM bag is, they're huge. It's a sewing machine type of bag. because we were going for design and marketing. So we were walking the street, and she said, "Just watch, these cops over here are gonna pull us aside." And I said, "Why? We're not doing anything. We're just walking." And she's like, "They do it to me every single day." And I'm like, "Girl, whatever." I didn't believe her. So then the cop, lo and behold, pulls us to the side and asks us what we're doing. And we're like, "We're just walking, officer. I have my student badge. Do you want to see it? Like, do you really, what else are we going to be doing?" He's like, "Are you sure you're not walking, you're not soliciting?" This is when I got so upset, and I said, "Do you really think that I'm going to pull a trick with my Venom bag right now, hop in his car, fuck him, and then what am I going to do with my bag? And this is my friend. You really think we're going to do that right now?" And he said, "Well, no." I'm like, "No. You see my badge here that I just come from school. You see my school supplies. You see this. I'd rather you get in your car and drive away. We're going to walk away from you." So we did that. We walked away, and that was that. But it is imperative for you to listen to this, because transgender women are profiled on a regular basis for being in the sex industry. And it's also imperative that you also know that even if I were to be a sex worker and I were to be in the sex industry, I would have had to do that because workforce development in the city of Los Angeles doesn't focus on that. It doesn't focus on that enough because it requires people, in order to access workforce development, to sign up through selective service. If you're a transgender woman and you seek asylum in the United States of America, you're not able to then get into selective service. So it creates so many barriers to the trans community that workforce development alone doesn't acknowledge. So all of these things that are not created for trans people, that create barriers for us to even get a job, let alone have housing. There's so many issues around housing that a lot of the trans community becomes purposely infected with HIV in order to access housing, because HAPWA is the only one that is then funding housing. So it's imperative that we all understand what the sex industry is for the trans community. It is not that we are there to just make money, just make a quick dollar, as they say, or just because we're lazy, or just because of anything. A lot of the times we are pushed, so we have nothing else left but to survive. Thank you very much.
Anybody want to answer some questions? Okay, here.
So that was Linwood Sheriff's Department that stopped you, the second incident you described?
Yeah.
And where exactly was the location of the stop?
It was right after, so we're going, it was in, if you get off of the two big thing, I don't know if you've ever gone on the Blue Line, there's a two-story thing, right? So you walk down and you're walking south on Long Beach Boulevard. Then it would be right before the highway, like right at the intersection is. So
Okay. And that was 2011?
That was in 2011, 2012.
All right, thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, now I want to be specific about a case of a teenager from South Valley. The school is Bird Middle School. Bird, B as a boy, Y, R, D. And I was extremely taken back by the principal's attitude towards youth of color. And what happened was that the middle school student was being bullied and cyberbullied, and in addition to that, many of the schools in the Northeast Valley have these huge banners about restorative justice. When I brought up the whole restorative justice item to the principal said, I don't think that what you're talking about is official. And I pulled the bulletin, I told the principal, here's the bulletin, this is what I'm talking about. Didn't want to believe us because we were coming from an LGBTQ organization. From the beginning, we were given the ugly look. Most importantly, this is a student who witnessed a rape. And the student was constantly being taken out of the classroom for the detective to constantly be interrogating him. And I learned that this had happened so many times without the consent of the youth, and the mother, the single parent, was not even aware of that. And this is a student who had already been, the school couldn't care less about the family history. This is a student whose dad was deported. This is a student whose favorite cousin was murdered in the neighborhood recently. This is a student who had witnessed one of his best girlfriends getting raped. And then, to shut up about it, he got a knife in his neck by the student. But what I'm talking about is we have got to work together to make sure that this does not continue happening. The schools principals not knowing the damn policies. Principals not believing that restorative justice is actually something that the community has pushed for. Youth of color being taken out of the classroom constantly, and that impacted their grades and all that, at the expense of detectives doing their paperwork without consent. It's just a lot, and I wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you so much. Ronnie, a few questions.
So what law enforcement agency was the detective from? Do you know?
I believe it was LAPD.
LA. And how long ago was this incident?
This was about 2 to 3 months ago.
Oh, and that was Bird Middle School, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks. You should talk to the students in the back. That's a big complaint.
A recent one, so that, yeah. Uriah Selaya.
Well, my name is Uriah Selaya, as you guys just heard, and I'm a Black and Mexican boy from Pacoima. From as young as I can remember, my people have grown up knowing that the police only care about what happens in white neighborhoods. At a young age, being sexually assaulted, when my family finally found out and called the cops, nothing happened. There was no search, there was not even a report on my abuser. And then when my mom, when she called the police for the 3rd time for being abused by her stepdad, the police officer, a white woman, simply told her that she didn't want to be hit anymore, she should leave. This is things going on that while diversity tries to be filled by adding women to the police force, nothing happens for people of color. I agree with Camille that law enforcement should have to do psychology classes in their process of becoming an officer. Additionally, ethnic studies and race relationships and social work should be emphasized consistently in the process of becoming a law enforcement provider, not just when our people are killed in cold blood. Positions should also be voted on by community councils to fully evaluate their capabilities to act with control. And that's about all I gotta say.
Thank you. Thank you, Uriah. Appreciate it. Jasmine Richards.
Hello. I just want to come up here first and start off by saying I'm Jasmine Richards with Black Lives Matter Pasadena. And I want to say Jamel Moore's name. So if we can all collectively say his name. Jamel Moore. Say his name. Jamel Moore. Say his name. Jamel Moore. That part. And that political donor is Ed Buck. I want to start off and put his name on the record because there's been 3 or 4 stories, actually 4 stories beside Jamel's. And these young black men have told their stories to the police stations, to not only the sheriff, but to Compton police station as well as Hollywood, and have been denied. They've been called tweakers, like my brother just said. I want to start off by saying that Ed Buck is a deviant. He's a sexual predator. He goes around West Hollywood looking for young black men and testing them with drugs, looking at them and testing them. And this is not, it's just like Jasmine said, it's like Tuskegee. It's like the Tuskegee experiments. He's testing our young black men, and nobody's saying nothing because they're considered the lost, right? And so what I want to say is their lives matter. And what Ed Buck is doing is he's paying off political folks. He's paying off Mayor Garcetti, he's paying off Jackie Lacey, he's paying off the sheriff's station in West Hollywood, and everybody's turning a blind eye. Why? Because he has money. And money out here, it rules everything. But we know that money is the root to all evil. And Ed Buck is the epitome of evil. And the more we keep letting this man keep walking around West Hollywood, and we don't say his name, and we don't go in front of his house, and we don't keep making everybody know the story of Jamil Moore, the more he's going to go around and do this to young black babies. And this is not fair. I'm here to ask you guys for preventative measures. Now, we know things are going on in West Hollywood. There's drugs, there's sex work, but we know that nobody's out there because they want to be. They're out there because they have to be, right? So it's up to us to stop this. It's up to us to go out there and offer programs, mental health, not only that, but drugs, you know what I mean? People need NA, CA, but nobody wants to go to a grown-up CA meeting if you're young. You need folks that are your age, so we need more places that are for the youth, that are for the young adults. Jamil Moore, he was nothing different than me. He was nothing different than the folks that I know. And what I'm feeling right now in my heart is that people don't care because he's a black man. And people don't care because Ed Buck has millions of dollars. But what I want to put on record is that this man, Ed Buck, is a sexual predator. He's a deviant. He is going around and he is killing our babies. And this is not right. And it's up to all of us to do something. Not this board, but it's up to us. Because on Santa Monica Boulevard, I used to work at Equality, California. And I noticed that on this side of Santa Monica, which is La Brea, you're okay, right? The white folks, they look out for each other and everything, but on this side of Santa Monica, it's just the brown and black folks, and on Santa Monica and Highland, it's drug use, it's sex work, it's all type of stuff going on, but it's because babies have to be. Now, I have a niece, he's transgender, and he's out there on Santa Monica, right? And he doesn't come home because of the way the family treats her. So what I'm here to say is that it's my fault, and it's our fault, and we have to be here so there will be no more Jamil Moores.
Can you come back for 1 second? I think a point that you made is really important, which is specific prevention programs for particular communities. So you said these Narcotic Anonymous meetings are oftentimes older folks, young people don't want to go to those meetings.
Relatable.
Would you say the same thing is true for queer and trans folks having specific programs, more specific programs and funding for those programs specific to those communities?
Yes, I feel that way. There's a program in Pasadena called, it's called the Art House, and it's specifically for LGBTQ youth and young adults who've just been incarcerated and who have a drug problem. And you could come there for free. It's not just like rehabilitation. You can come there and bring your whole family, you know what I mean? It's a family space where not like most of these programs, there's a 30-day wait and you can't talk on the phone, you can't leave the program or anything like that. But with this program, you can go talk on the phone, you can leave. They try to push you back into life, you know what I mean? And it's not shutting you out, but it's getting you back. You know, and that's what we all need, right? Right? So, just more programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Good afternoon. My name is Amanda Goad. I'm an attorney with the ACLU of Southern California, focusing on LGBTQ rights, so my comments today will focus there as well. We appreciate the opportunity both to speak and to listen. Starting on a national level, in the U.S. Transgender Survey released in 2015, respondents experienced high levels of mistreatment and harassment by police, including verbal harassment, repeated misgendering, physical assault, sexual assault, and being forced to engage in sexual activity to avoid arrest. All of those adverse interactions leave scars. 57% of survey respondents said they would feel uncomfortable asking police for help if they needed it. Respondents who interacted with the police while perceived as doing sex work reported particularly pervasive problems, with 9 out of 10 reporting being harassed, attacked, sexually assaulted, or mistreated in some other way by the police. Locally, we continue to hear of alarming rates of profiling by law enforcement, including disproportionate stops, arrests, and overcharging of trans women, trans youth, and LGBTQ people of color. AB 953 was an important step forward in terms of collecting data on who involuntarily interacts with law enforcement, but a lot more work will be needed to equalize communities' comfort levels with treating the police as a resource who can help solve problems. We at the ACLU feel that one crucial step will be for LAPD and the other local agencies to deprioritize enforcement of laws against sex work, as that enforcement does not create other economic opportunities for folks engaged in sex work, and very often contributes to the burdens of stigma and trauma carried by trans women of color and other vulnerable members of our community. Finally, I want to acknowledge that attacks on immigrants' rights are currently a huge human relations problem facing our local LGBT communities, among others, particularly given the harsh environments of transphobia, homophobia, economic marginalization, and physical danger that face many LGBTQ immigrants in the countries of origin, as well as in civil immigration detention here. We look forward to the implementation of SB 54, ensuring that all of California represents a sanctuary from local authorities' complicity with federal immigration enforcement. Assaults on immigrants will continue to emanate from Washington, and Los Angeles must stand united to resist them. Thank you.
Thank you. Some questions? You're in the local ACLU office?
ACLU of Southern California, Los
Right.
Angeles.
Okay, so are you documenting incidents of the kind you've just described in your testimony of the harassment by the police? Is that what your project does?
We do when they come to us. Our community partners, I believe, have a lot more information of that nature.
Okay, but when they're referred to you, you will document, and then what do you do with that documentation?
We would love for there to be a clearer structure for reporting such things if the county has resources.
Okay, well, it's just good to know that the ACLU is out there and you have a project like this and you focus, and that you can be a resource to the folks in this room too, correct?
Absolutely. We try to focus on making change for the greatest number of people through policy, litigation, as well as community education.
I think it's just a damning statistic that 9 out of 10 folks who have this kind of interaction with the police are harassed by the police. It's outrageous. All right, thanks.
Did you also say that there's an existing report that you're pulling from?
The report we were pulling from is national. It's called the U.S. Transgender Survey, published by the National Center for Transgender Equality. Again, we would love to do local data collection and focus in on Los Angeles County, but we would need resources and support for that.
Do you mind writing down where we can get that national survey at least? Or that national study? Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
So, Tyler Picasso, I'm sorry. This is our last. Please feel free to go ahead and re-sign up.
My name is Tyler Picasso. Gender pronouns are he, his. I'm with the organization Somos Valle, and I am a trans male. There's 2 occasions that happened to me. First was in Mulholland Middle School. I came out to my father, and my dad called me a prostitute and said if it wasn't for church, I would have killed you a long time ago. And I took my mom to the police department, and they said that they couldn't do anything because it wasn't a real threat. They told me that I could just go to court and get my mom can get full custody of me, and for that it's really hard because she doesn't get a lot of money for her to really support her family, so we need to live in an apartment building with my uncle and her boyfriend so that we can help each other out to get a good money statement. Right after that happened, I had to switch schools because I was afraid to see my father again and afraid of what he would do. And this second incident was into Poblano Middle School. I went there. I didn't come out to the counselor yet because I didn't know the way she would react. So around October, I think it was Halloween, and I came out to her and I told her that I would like to go by he, him, his, and by Tyler, and she said it was perfectly fine and that she would tell the teachers. She did tell the teachers, but every day I would get misgendered by the teachers, and then I got got picked by a student in my science class. He called me by my birth name, and the teacher was there, and she didn't say anything. She just stood there and stared at him, and she didn't say anything. And then once we told the principal, he didn't say anything either. He didn't do anything. He told Ronnie, which helped my mom out a lot, that he was going to speak with the teachers, and that never happened. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you so much. Tyler, will you answer a few questions here?
Tyler, when the police, you went to the police and the police told you it was not a threat, what your dad said. What police agency was that? LAPD?
Yeah, I think it's LAPD.
Where were you living at the time?
I was living with my dad around Tarzana.
In Tarzana area, okay. And how long ago was that?
That was last year in the month of October.
Okay, thanks. Please talk to the law students in the back and feel free to, if you want to make a complaint, because that's outrageous what they said to you.
I want to add on to what Tyler said. A very similar thing happened to me with my mom's stepdad. He threatened me, he threatened my mom too, both verbally that he would kill us. And
Uriah, right?
Yes, Uriah. And yeah. So the same thing happened to me, and many times law enforcement have been called on him. He has a history of sexual and physical assault against women, and was even seen like watching me through my window. And when I tried to report that, and when I tried to report the threats of like murder, the police department, San Fernando Police Department, they came and told us too that it wasn't a real threat because it was verbal and it could be like hearsay or whatever it's called like that. So that's definitely something that's very common in our community.
Yeah. So, yeah, can you talk to the, because that's not a hearsay. It's just a threat. Anybody else? Okay. So, I just, did somebody say that? No? Okay. I'm seeing a hand in the back. Yes? I couldn't tell if it was. Or you wanted to just.
Hi.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Gia Elias. I'm a reentry counselor with the Center for Health Justice. And I am here just to simply recommend cultural sensitivity training when it comes to gender and sexual diversity, when it comes to the correctional officers in the sheriff department, also with the vice police undercover department, and also with the probation department handling the juveniles and juvenile hall. Thank you.
You said you were with
the Center for Health Justice.
Yes, Center for Health Justice. Do you have some materials that kind of list out some of the specific sorts of trainings that you would like to see?
Absolutely, yes. There are a variety of trans and gender and sexual diversity 101s throughout the network of the Trans Service Provider Network,
yes,
which are full of community-based organizations.
Would you be willing to email that to the commission, please, so we can make sure that we have it from your organization and on record?
Will do.
Thank you so much. Any more questions?
So Gia, I don't know if this is for you or for other folks in the audience. We did want to, we've been getting reports of trans folks being, when they are booked into custody, held in solitary confinement. We don't have that on the official record because nobody offered testimony to that. So if you do have a comment, we'd love to get that on the official record.
I did that anonymously.
Oh, you did? Now it's not. Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to call anybody out. We just want to make sure that those things are documented, and if there's anybody else who wants to talk about the experiences of trans folks in jails and in custody, please let us know. Feel free to come up or anonymously write down your experiences.
Yes, absolutely, because we know that this is all very sensitive, so absolutely remember that the room right behind us, 107, is where you can do that anonymously, and here comes someone.
Hi.
Tell me your name.
Hi there. I'm Tiffany.
they, them, she, her. You'll have to forgive me, I was not actually preparing to speak today. I'm here on behalf of the LGBTQ Center of Long Beach. I'm pretty new to the area. I just moved here with my partner. I want to say, I'm sorry. I'm turning because I'm directing this question more to y'all than I am to y'all up front, just full disclosure. I am from Washington, D.C. We just moved here, I want to say, almost 4 months ago. So I'm pretty green, and D.C. has its problems, if y'all don't already know. We're definitely struggling and fighting through some stuff, but I'm wondering here, as I'm still familiarizing myself with how folks do things here, is there any sort of LGBTQ liaison unit that the police departments here in LA County has? Is there anything like that?
Yes, there are.
What's happening that we're not being advocated for? What's happening that they're not advocating for us? What's happening that when you call the police or the police shows up and you make it clear that you're queer or LGBT identified in any way, that the unit is not called immediately to advocate on your behalf?
So there's one person in each of the sheriff and police department.
I'm not stopping you, but I want you to come up and have it actually recorded.
Same thing, please. Thank you. And thank you for holding this space, y'all.
Thank you for your question. To my knowledge,
That one.
the sheriff and police department and the Los Angeles Police Department each have one LGBT liaison where they take our comments and our issues. However, they're usually not on call 24/7.
And that is all that they do, take comments?
Yeah, and they give recommendations.
To the caller, not to anybody else?
No, to their board.
Okay.
Is there a way for, I apologize, that I don't know how reasonable this is, but it's got to become reasonable at some point. Is there a way for resources to be routed to make sure that that department has the support they need to have them on call 24/7? Is that possible?
Well, it's certainly a demand, a recommendation. That's exactly what we're trying to collect. This kind of information that there may be something on paper, but what's on paper isn't working. That what's on paper is undersourced. And that seems to me to be what I'm hearing from you, Gia, that there's one person, but it's not enough.
Right.
And it's not the 24/7 that you already, 4 months in, you know is needed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
That's.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
I see a hand back there.
I'm Karina Samala, and I'm the chair of the City of Los Angeles Transgender Advisory Council.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Transgender Advisory Council. We're mostly a working group. We deal with the policies with LAPD on interaction of transgender individuals that is now being implemented by LAPD. Okay, on housing and every issue that's come up. On the liaison, LAPD has liaisons, LGBT liaisons. Right now, Jules Psalms is one of them. Ian also is also a GL liaison that people can come up with. They come to all our meetings and also attend all our meetings, and we have also forums and also working group with LAPD, with the community. So anything that is, and it's all out there. The Sheriff's Department has the same thing. They have LGBT liaisons also that work with the community and work with us, with our advisory board and also our working group. So those policies are set. I guess some of the community members do not know about this, that I guess we need to encourage them to come forward to our advisory board, advisory council, and also to the liaisons of both departments.
Oh, yes. Can you, Karina?
Yes.
Can you fill out a form just so we'll have the contact information
Sure,
for you?
give
Because
you
we
all
would
the
want to be
information.
able to.
And also we have also members of our committee, like I am, who is also on the advisory councils of both the LP and the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, absolutely, because we want to get more information from you further. So please fill that out so you'll have that information. Thank you very much.
It was just in response, I have
Can
a call my.
you gotta come up.
For the recording. Thank you. Hello, I was also not planning on speaking. My name is Olivia. I'm the LGBT Health Access and Outreach Intern at the Central American Resource Center of Los Angeles. I have a copy of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department's Manual of Policy and Procedures, as well as their transgender and gender nonconforming employee guide. But none of these explicitly detail anything about the liaison policy, and I just thought I would mention that.
Thank you.
Hi, Jugan. I just want to additionally add that first responders, to my knowledge, don't have a gender or sexual diversity cultural training.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, oh, come on.
Hi, I actually wasn't planning on speaking
Can
today
you say
as
your name,
well.
please?
My name's Andrea, and I wasn't planning on speaking today as well, but my heart told me to, and I'm speaking on behalf of my mom. My mom is an immigrant, and all her life she was in an abusive relationship, and she has called the cops at least 40 times when I was little. All the time, the cops have told her that she should just get out of the house, just find a job, and just leave away from her abuser. I'm 21 now, and my mom recently just left her abuser, and I'm just saying this because I wish the police had done more, and this was in the city of Winnetka all my life, and it was the LAPD. Every single time my mom called the cops, they ignored what she had to say. They only listened to what my ex-father would say, and hearing other youth speak about how verbal abuse isn't being accounted for and how nobody's paying attention to, it affects a lot, sometimes more than what physical is. Verbal abuse is valid and it really does hurt us. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
I would like to add that I've been diagnosed with depression and anxiety.
Tyler?
Yes.
Thank you.
And my father used to tell me that if I didn't behave, that he would go to Mexico and leave me for a new family. He used to pinch me in my arm. He used to say that my mom was a whore, that she was a slut, that she was not a good woman, that she used to beat me, that that it was her fault for the way I am. He used to tell me, I can fix you with the Bible. You just, I just need, to come, so you can come with me. He used to tell me, I used to ask him, so what if I was gay? He said, I will chop you into pieces and put you in a cage and burn you alive. And he would always call my mom on social services, but if I told him that she didn't do anything bad, she spanked me or something, he would call social services on her and make sure that I am taken away from her.
Thank you. Very brave to come forward with that. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Hi, my name is Camila. I had spoken briefly anonymously, but after hearing a lot of my peers and community members speak, I decided to come up myself and share a little bit about my own story. I was only profiled once, and I don't know if you could actually call it profiling, which is why I was so hesitant to actually share it. It was in July of 2016, and I was feeling on fire, considering I had just started presenting as female, and I was really feeling my oats. But when you're still visibly assigned male at birth, and you're on public transportation, and quite clockable. You realize that merely existing, puts yourself in danger. And so I was on the red line and realized that there was a man who was quite angrily staring me down, and I decided, hey, I don't have the money for it, but I'm going to get the hell out of here and get off on the next stop, and I'll take a lift. And it was, I want to say, like 8 p.m. at night, so I hopped off at Sunset in Vermont, and I called a Lyft, and as I'm waiting for my Lyft, I see a cop car slow down, and then I'm like, okay, whatever, like that's nothing to worry about, and then I guess it had done around and came and parked right immediately in front of me, and the officers in it were staring at me, whispering, saying some stuff, and I'm like walking back and forth, clearly looking like I might have been soliciting, but I was just waiting for a lift. But it was just such a clear moment that I realized my mere existence was a red flag to, the police department and to officers to be like, wait a minute, this could be one of those trans sex workers that we've been cracking down on so hard. And it was such a sobering moment of reality because like I said, been feeling really confident, especially that day, and then to realize that at the hands of fragile masculinity, I couldn't ride public transportation, and at the hands of trying to actually attain my own safety and get a lift, the people who were meant to protect and serve me were deeming me a potential criminal, but in reality, as my colleague, Alexandra Magallon, we work together at the Trans Looking Out Coalition, she mentioned, what else are we supposed to do if people don't want to hire us? And, I myself am very privileged. I was born in the United States, was able to get a bachelor's degree of education, and have the opportunity to work with women and men who are in far less fortunate situations. And they themselves would be here today if it weren't for the fact that they're so afraid to actually tell their stories. So these forums are beautiful and amazing and great in theory, but the reality is coming forward with the harsh realities of what we experience on a day-to-day basis is overwhelming, considering we've been turned away time and time again, and doing so has often, bitten us in the ass. So I don't really know what the recommendations are. I agree with Gia that trans sensitivity trainings are necessary. I know that the bureaucratic systems of government and the city of Los Angeles might not necessarily make that possible overnight or over the course of the next year, but at least prioritize us and realize that the people you're policing are the ones that need protecting the most. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you for making the decision to come forward, because as you point out there, we know that there are people who can't, right? It's so hard, and so we really appreciate your decision to say, okay, I'm going to step up here and speak. Thank you. Samantha Jo Datto.
How are you? I'm good. I'm Samantha Jo Datto. I'm on the leadership team of TWOC, which is the Trans Women of Color Collective. And I want to thank all of you for sharing your stories and stepping up to that plate. This area that we're at here is not an unfamiliar area for us. There's all these town halls where people come and we share our stories, and we don't know what happens after that, right? And what happens is it feels like you've been erased, or your story has not been heard enough to make an impact for change. And one of the things that I'm charging you with, or asking you to do, is to play cultural competency trainings from the people that are in front of you, and not from these design people who are educated and think that they know all these things. The lived experiences are real. Not only that, we usually walk ourselves and support one another out of our trauma because we can't face it or find it anywhere else. So even though the education may not be there, the experience, the training, and all of the other things for trans people of color and everyone who's been sexually assaulted, molested, aging, all kinds of discriminations, we start and we are the change that we seek. So I think that we need to start looking from in these rooms and in these amounts of organizations that are working to get things rolling on the ball. Thank you.
Am I right in hearing that you are echoing what we've heard about cultural competence, but the one thing you want to make sure is that it's not a bunch of folks with academic credentials, it's about folks who have lived and gone through it and survived and thrived out of it.
I am echoing that definitely, and I'm also echoing that the LGB is not the same as the T, and I want to make sure that they're separated. I think this is not together, and my identity is an orientation. So being trans is definitely who I am. But yes, I am to the top of the mountain screaming that this training and these cultural competencies need to start from within. And contracted work will start employment, which fights all kind of barriers that trans and LGBT people face.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted that I'm learning as I'm accessing higher education and academic spaces and all that, is that the thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars are going to white-led organizations that have only opinions. I have sat down with an executive director of a family justice center in the San Fernando Valley. She herself told me that she wanted to hire me, but she told me, you know, just so you know, the sheriffs here think they know it all. The nurses here think they know it all. But when it comes to racial justice at the intersection of mental health services and institutional violence, she didn't want to talk about grassroots organizations. Or she didn't want to acknowledge that all people of color are at the bottom and the board and everything is white. And it hurts when trans-led organizations by first-generation immigrants, by people of color, by formerly homeless, formerly hospitalized, formerly jailed, we don't get nothing. So I would encourage you all to use your power and bring us with you to demand that the dollars go to grassroots organizations, and we should not have to fight that damn 501c3 status. We have to innovate, redefine what social work means, but also how we channel the money from the LA County to the people who actually know how to thrive, not just survive. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Gia?
Oh, no, I just didn't turn one in.
Oh, okay. You didn't want to be called it. And Andrea Delgado? Oh, okay. So you just wanted to let us know you. Thank you very much. Adam Roll?
Hi, my name is Adam Roll, and my pronouns are he and they. I'm not in affiliation with any organization. I had 2 incidents in the past count of 11, almost 8 years ago, and about 2 years ago with the Foothill Division of Lakeview Terrace. All my life, I was raised in a verbally abusive home due to the account of my father being an alcoholic. The first incident indicated that he was intoxicated and was a danger towards the people in the home, including my mother, but he didn't hit anybody. And so when the police arrived, they said they couldn't take him back to the station or detain him. That myself, my mother, and my 2 siblings had to relocate to a hotel or motel or a friend's home and come back to our house. And so they didn't take any action and just left us there for us to deal with it on our own. And so because of that, we did do that. And my mother still, very much financially dependent on my father, she remained with him for the next several years. And then on the account of June of 2015, he was intoxicated, verbally aggressive toward my mother, controlling, manipulative, and he grabbed her by the throat and he hit her. And so that's when he was detained by the police. And because of that, it had to be, they finally detained him after 6 years. I had to endure my fair share of transphobia, displacement, trauma that I'm still dealing with today. I just left my abusive home, and now I'm dealing with unemployment, displacement, because of LAPD not taking action on verbal abuse in the home and dismissing my case completely. Now I'm dealing with this, and my family is still with their abuser. And then constantly my trauma is invalidated because of that. So for LAPD, they need to really make mental health their priority, especially for undocumented folks as well, for the trauma that they're processing. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So we're about to close, but one of our partners asked that I announce that on, I think this is Tuesday, September 26th at 9 a.m., there will be the launch of the Justice LA campaign on the corner of Temple and Grand Avenue. For more information, please go to justicela.org, but they wanted to invite everyone to meet at Temple and Grand on Tuesday, September 26th at 9 a.m.
Yes, can I see a hand? Yes, we can. Come on.
Again, my name is Imani. I don't want to say anything too big, but I think in the future it's very important to have conferences and hearings that people can actually attend. Because like for myself, I go to Cal State Long Beach, as I said, and I work in the mornings. And I have school. So even if I flip and switch those schedules, I still have somewhere to be. And I can't afford to miss a day of work. So I just want to put that out there to, if you guys do have the authority and the power to make sure you guys can have hearings that are appropriate for people so they won't be able to miss work. Because they need that money. We need that money. I need that money.
We know.
I'm a struggling student. So just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, can I say one more thing?
Yes, we can. Come on.
So I know we're wrapping up. I was born in Los Angeles, and I went to school on the East Coast, and after graduation I lived in Manhattan. I had to move back to Los Angeles 2 years ago, largely in part because Manhattan was a place that was very destructive because white executive got me addicted to crystal meth. And the only way that I could truly deal with that addiction was by coming home and forcing myself to separate me from that, as somebody else referenced, predator. And as this is wrapping up, I think it's important that we just remind ourselves that Jamel Moore's case is of the utmost importance and something that really needs to be addressed, not only in the case of holding people accountable, but holding white supremacy accountable, because a lot is being said, but nothing is being done. And I was lucky enough to have gotten away from my abuser, and there are so many people who aren't. So as we kind of finish, I think it's important that we just remember that and constantly keep it in the back of our minds, because the community deserves to see action in that respect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell Adam, are you still here? That was very powerful testimony, and I'm hoping that we can get more detail, because what would be really interesting to see is if the Foothill Division, we make a complaint, and you see all these years passed after the first incident, then the next incident, if there were numerous calls and they did nothing in response.
Yeah, and may I include the night of me fleeing the home? I had called the division several times for them to shadow over my safety as I flee the home. I had to jump out the window of my home while family was out of the house. So, and I had to take an Uber to get to safety.
There's a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are coming to a formal close, so thank you all again for coming forward. I know that a lot of this testimony was tough, and so I just want to acknowledge the courage, the bravery of all of you stepping forward here. I want to remind you that, of course, we have one more hearing. It will be to actually hear what law enforcement has to say, and if you want to know when that is, you can get to our website. It too will be a public hearing. And I want to encourage all of you to keep on us, because we're going to produce something, but we want it to be something that you all can use so that we can support you in all of the changes. I'm sorry. In all of the changes that we know have to be made, because it's going to take not just a report or anything like that, but all of our efforts and more people who aren't even in this room. So I want to remind you that we still have food, so please go and eat. There is some information out there for those of you who may not have seen it about various community organizations. And the last thing is to adjourn in the name of and memory of Jamil Moore. So we do keep holding up his name. So thank you all for coming.
Hi, my name is Shelley Crawford. This is my son Andre. We have a situation where Andre was arrested from school and they did not notify me. But let me take you back to where it started from. Andre is my foster son. I'm his legal guardian. He's under an IEP, which gives him a right to stay in school until he's 22 if he wants to. But he's under an IEP, and I say that because I felt that when the police came to the school over an incident that happened off of campus, they should have called me and not waited to call me after they handcuffed him and took him to jail. Although I know he was 18 at the time, he still is under an IEP, and there were records that they would have been found useful that probably would have prevented it had they called me and asked me about it. My main point is that once he was arrested, he stayed incarcerated for a day and a half. And I reached out to an organization that I'm a part of, which is the NAACP. And the president came. We all met down in court. I had his regional service worker present. And at court, the sheriff came out and he said they were going to release him. So he didn't even see a judge. He didn't even go into a courtroom to be charged with anything or to be asked to come back. He was released and the charges were dismissed. Now this is a problem that I'm having today. Andre was sent a notice in the mail from Community Care Licensing stating that he can't for the rest of his natural life work at any child care facility, anything dealing with children because of the incident. However, he was never charged. We never went before a judge. Like I said, I think all of this would have been eliminated had the police called me from school. I feel that a new policy needs to be implemented, that if the police come to the school, if it's a high school, no matter how old they are, they're still in high school. He's under an IEP, and especially if you have a disability, I feel that the police, it should be mandated that they call the parent, the legal guardian, to come down before they arrest that child. Because to us, they are still children. They're in high school, he's under an IEP, and I think a lot of the heartache and humiliation that he suffered behind this would have been prevented had he been Caucasian, and had I been able to be present during the interviewing. They had him write something and sign it, and I hold his legal rights. So I should have been present, and that is the problem I'm having. I feel they need to have different policies implemented and put in place so that these kids that are falling under IEPs that already have disabilities, he has disabilities that have been diagnosed through a psychiatrist. There are things going on that could have been brought out to prevent this. And the young lady that it concerned was his girlfriend of a while, and they had both agreed to something, and she was scared of her parents, so she just said anything, and from that's why the police were called in, if you want to know what happened. But just to keep it semi-private, I just want better policies for these kids, especially African American kids that fall under IEPs with disabilities, that the parents, the legal guardians, need to be called first before they're drugged through the mud. And now he stands with a, just like something against him that'll prevent him from getting a job anywhere. And I'd like to have that expunged and removed completely. So there also needs to be a law in place that if they're not charged, if they don't go before a judge, that those need to automatically be erased off the books completely. That's it. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, I'm Jay Farrell. I'm a resident of Venice, California, and I would like to share with the committee some of the things that actually go on a daily basis in Venice, California, as far as the people without houses are concerned. Number one is they wake you up at 6:30 in the morning, and you have to take down your dwelling and leave the area. Number two is that if you're caught, at their discretion, of course, anywhere in the area, they will write you no lottery ticket. Number three is that they will not allow you to come back to your residence until after 9 o'clock at night in order to lay down and go to sleep. And then at their discretion, they will come at 1, 2, or 3 o'clock in the morning and tell you about 3 or 4 inches away from the curb, 36 inches away from the curb, you're blocking the sidewalk, and write your citation, and so on and so forth. And this is just plain harassment. And I really feel that because Google moved into the neighborhood, they have been especially dedicated to serving Google's wishes and not have anyone around their building. And I thank you for letting me have an opportunity to speak.
Okay, my complaint is that the horse cops do not belong in Venice, California. They're part of the Metro Division. They're not part of Pacific Division. They harass people continually. They bully, they intimidate. They have no vested interest in the community. And something the pastor just said is the police should know the families in the community. And the Metro Division is sending the horse cops to Venice, and they are just it's like a war on the homeless. A friend of mine was riding his bicycle on the boardwalk. He was homeless, and they stopped him. They gave him a ticket, and it turned into a big problem. They arrested him. Had a tourist been riding a bicycle on the boardwalk, they would have ignored it. So there's just an attack on the homeless, and the horse cops are bullies. They harass, they intimidate, and I think they should be removed from Venice Beach. That's it. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I have certain stories that I would like to share that I've experienced myself and other friends of mine facing police brutality, where they're being a little too aggressive and having a lack of understanding of the situation at hand, more so taking sides of the residents and adhering to their every call and need rather than fully understanding the situation and treating us as if we're part of the community as well, more so than just seeing us as a problem that the residents see us as and relating that to the police. So they see us as a problem too, and being called out on their behalf instead of just having a common ground for each parties. I've seen a friend of mine, being harassed and being handled very aggressively when he was clearly speaking, from self-control and not, being all out of misconduct, and complying to whatever they wanted to do, but they still were applying aggressive aggressive holds on him and just making it look like he was acting all out of his mind and as if he wasn't doing what they were saying, but it was clearly, and it was clear that he was saying and acting according to everything they were saying, to the point where they brought up a medical truck and treated the case like he was being mentally challenged when that wasn't the case. So what they did was they was cleaning up the street, and one of the guys that was cleaning up posed himself to be a police officer, and my friend adhered to what he was saying, and then later to find out that he wasn't a police officer, but posing as one so he can give some type of authority instruction to my friend. But then him realizing he wasn't, it's false. I don't know what you would call it, but that's just wrong or whatever. But I mean, as far as solutions, which I've heard, one should be because we hire the police force for the community, so the community should have full control of how they control the community and how they go about certain protocols when attending to these needs that the community have. And people within the community, which I also heard a solution, are ones to be hired and ones to actually patrol the community. Because they live there and understand the people and the things that go on within that community, because everyone is different. So there's no way you can train a police officer in general for every community and know the ways of that community and the problems that really go on. So hiring within the community and only serving the community the way they want to be served is two prime solutions that need to be done. There's no other way. There's no other way, no other solutions that can be done the way it's set up now. It has to be reconstructed. So that's all I have to say.
I'm Peggy Lee Kennedy with the Venice Justice Committee, and I wanted to be more clear about recommendations that I would give to the county Human Relations Commission regarding police. Proposition H was just passed, and I would say that any spending, any 1 cent of that should have oversight by people that are not part of, say, social services that are dependent on city funding, so it influences their view, and community members that aren't taking money from law enforcement or the city or in league with law enforcement in some way. I think that they should be activists or people who are unhoused themselves. That's regarding Proposition H, because the city did HHH and they had this committee, but they got, and even built into it to have this oversight committee for spending. But it turned out that ex-city employees were hired and some such, but it doesn't have real oversight. We need real oversight on the spending so that it isn't just law enforcement led actions that are called services being taken against homeless people like it's a war on them, which is how they treat it. It's a war against homelessness, and it's an assault by the LAPD. Another thing I want to be sure to recommend the County Human Relations Commission is that any spending besides Proposition H, we form a more formal committee and really look at this spending and how much of it is intertwined with law enforcement, because law enforcement should not be the first responder to homeless people. We should be looking at all of the issues. There's a lot of issues and a lot of different types of people that are homeless for different reasons. You cannot provide services based on law enforcement when there's no housing. It doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of our money and it's very expensive. Thank you.
Hello, yes, my name is Wes, and I just want to say that I've been listening to a lot of solutions, but I haven't heard no real clear solution to the problem. And it's real simple. When you have cancer inside your body, what do? You go in and you extract the cancer out of your body. And throughout the black community for years and years and years, every rebellion that we've had since 1865 has involved the police. So, what we need to do is simply take white policemen out of the black community. That's going to be the solution. All of us want to play basketball with them, talk to them and all this. It's not going to work. To be trained is not going to work. They're trained. They're trained to do what they want to do, is to kill black folks. So you guys got to start voting correctly, getting rid of the Whitney Thomases, getting rid of Maxine Waters who don't stand up for the black community. And this is what we're going to have to do, or we're going to continue to suffer.